Is there anything you would have done differently?
We reported a true story.
Our colleague Brian Williams is back in Kuwait City tonight after a close call in the skies over Iraq.
Controversial Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and questions about Kavanaugh's drinking in the past.
Sean Hannity, come on up, Sean Hannity.
Today, Andrew Cuomo is having a moment.
The springtime tidings retros. I am Chris Steyerwalt.
And I'm Eliana Johnson.
Facts. Welcome to Ink-Stained Wretches, where we break down what's going wrong and what's going right with the American news media. Eliana, this is such a day that as the sun shineth upon your face when you walked outside, it would be impossible not to be clothed resplendently in a smile.
Maybe, but we are currently in a cold basement, so I reserve the right to frown. But Chris,
spring is springing.
It was wonderful to join you on your Sunday show
You were
this past
so good.
weekend, and it was fun. And the best part was, other than joining you, was the donuts.
I did have district donuts delivered, and
It was great.
While I find
Well, if you had them delivered, I'll bring them next time.
I found having I find paying $4.45 for a donut to be morally objectionable.
Yeah.
They are very, very good donuts.
Okay, the best part was that it's like 8 in the morning or maybe 9 o'clock. It wasn't that early, which was also a good part of doing this show, was not punishingly early. And, I eat half a donut, but I cut it in half and took half out of the box. And Chris is like, damn you people, you half donut eaters.
Well, I encourage you to go ahead and cut it, though, because you were you didn't feel like you could finish the whole donut. You didn't want to waste it.
I could have. I just opt for a smaller portion.
To be a decent person. But it was great, and you were witty and charming, and just to say the obvious, your hair looked amazing.
I had got my hair cut the day before.
Your hair looked amazing. It was just
so I'll
fantastic.
make sure to get a haircut the day before every
That's good.
time.
That's good.
Anyhow, in other news, on our front page, we had special counsel Robert Hur testifying before Congress this week on his report that described President Joe Biden as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory and diminished faculties. And he said that by way of explaining why he did not bring charges against Biden. Chris, what did you make of the testimony?
So, Popular Information, the Substack, typified, I think, a lot of the coverage in response to her. Now, there's another thing about why we shouldn't televise hearings, which is it was so dumb. It was just the dumbest. I've seen many dumb hearings, but this was particularly dumb and performative, as Robert Hur, who seems like an impressive professional human being, had to go through taking turns, as Democrats said, aren't you really a fifth column inside the Justice Department trying to destroy President Biden? No. Okay, says Republican. Isn't it true that you're covering up Joe Biden? And it's no. So it was dumb and wasted a lot of time. But here's what the progressive site, I guess I'd call it progressive, Popular Information, does a big attack on the way the media covered Robert Hur's report and covered his testimony by playing up Hur's findings on Biden's senility, right? And that he is this forgetful, well-intentioned man. And I just thought we're here. We're in the dumb season, which is every bit of reporting has to first be forced through the lens of, is this good for my team or for the other team? And the coding of all coverage into good for this team or good for that team makes it dumber, and just cover it for what it is and not what it isn't.
Well, the hearing was unsatisfying in that there were so many exchanges where Democrats were trying to force her to say that he had exonerated Biden.
Yes.
Though he basically said that at various points that he was willfully dishonest, and that, by the way, and he didn't find that he, at the time he did these things, was senile, which is why the whole thing didn't quite make sense. And that when you're charging someone with a crime, you have to show that they were compos mentis when they did the crime, which I think he was.
Yeah.
He just said a jury wouldn't convict him now because they would perceive him to be well-meaning.
The juice would not be worth the squeeze on trying to prosecute him. Yeah.
Basically. But so they just were trying to force him, and he wouldn't say that he had exonerated Biden, and Republicans were trying to demonstrate that there is a two-tiered system of justice at work, given that Trump is still facing these charges. And I think if we were to really get to the nub of this, let's set aside the document stuff. The difference here is that Trump didn't cooperate. That's the difference. And so, why doesn't Biden? I mean, if Biden were sort of clever, he would help Trump or push the Justice Department to dismiss the document charges against Trump
and just have the obstruction.
Let's just do the obstruction charges.
Yeah. And we did hear this week from one of the witnesses in the documents case who did a sit-down interview with CNN and basically saying, no, it's real. It's real. Also in a similar...
I think it will be hugely problematic, by the way, if Trump is convicted on the mishandling of classified information when Biden was allowed to skate.
Yeah, as Trump restarts his intelligence briefings as the presumptive Republican nominee. Of a similar vein in Georgia, Fani Willis, that story has overtaken all other stories because it's just a soap operatic, preposterous thing. But the judge dismissed several counts against Donald Trump in the Georgia trial. And I saw this coverage. It was like, charges against Trump dismissed. It's like, yeah, but other charges moving forward. Like this one is still going on. So the turning elections, this is a larger point and not one for a media podcast. But our belief that somehow the court system and the criminal justice system are sufficient to govern the country is not so. We will not receive satisfactory or sufficient answers from the criminal justice system to tell us how to vote.
Chris.
Oh yeah, but what is Biden doing? We heard what Hur had to say, Eliana, but secretly, what's he doing?
This was amazing. Politico Playbook does a bit. The headline is Playbook, Joe Biden's secret policy obsession.
Must be naughty.
And they write in there, but what issue? And they pull from Biden's own memoir. They say, but what issue? There too, Humphrey had thoughts. This is, Hubert Humphrey, Biden writes in his memoir, told Biden he had to become really obsessive about one policy issue. You should become Mr. Housing. Housing is the future, Humphrey told Biden. You could be the leader of a whole new generation that provides decent housing in America for middle class and lower middle class people and the poor. Well, how's that going? Fast forward half a century. Biden is in the White House, and that long ago advice seems to have taken hold.
I love it.
Written with a straight face.
He's obsessed.
In meetings with his inner circle, Biden is somewhat obsessed with the issue, using briefings to press senior staff on housing affordability, quizzing aides on mortgage rates and rental costs, and demanding details on the burden that inflation has placed on families' monthly housing budgets. Biden's personal preoccupation with the issue reflects an awareness that housing remains a key vulnerability in his administration's year-long fight to rein in inflation, and it's a shortcoming that officials worry is weighing on consumer sentiment, blah, blah, blah. Could we maybe get a line in here that if this is his lifelong policy obsession, he's utterly failed?
He's obsessed.
He's utterly failed.
He doesn't want people to know it, but he's obsessed with housing policy. All right. How about Aaron Rodgers? Do you know who Aaron Rodgers is?
I mean, I just know he's a football player or was. That's it.
is still.
Nothing else, and he wouldn't get the vaccine or something.
Yeah, he's a weirdo for sure. He was a secret, as we would say, Biden's housing obsession. He was secretly a weirdo before, and then got progressively weirder, especially around the question of vaccines. So CNN had this big story. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has confirmed that among his potential vice presidential prospects is New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who in private conversation shared keeping it neutral, deranged conspiracy theories about the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting not being real. CNN knows of 2 people with whom Rodgers has enthusiastically shared these stories, including with Pamela Brown, one of the journalists writing this piece. I suppose it's possible that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will pick Aaron Rodgers to be his running mate.
We find out today, don't we?
Soon?
No. Isn't he announcing a vice presidential nominee?
Is he doing that today?
I thought,
this
hold
very
on.
day? I know that today No Labels is announcing their smoke-filled room, the members of their smoke-filled room panel.
Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to announce running mate.
Well,
that was yesterday. Oh, on March 26th. Excuse me.
Oh,
we got Nate Moore correcting me.
Pause
Excuse
before Kenementum consumes us all. But the interesting thing about this story for me is Donald Trump has more to worry. I continue to say this. Donald Trump has more to worry about from RFK Jr. than Joe Biden does. And if RFK Jr., so the anti-vax thing, did you observe during Trump's response, live truthed response to the State of the Union address, that he went after Biden for taking credit for vaccines?
Yes.
And MAGA world was like, how dare you? Like, that's a red line.
Trump is very proud of that.
Yeah, and he should be, right? Of his bad record on COVID, he has one part that he can point to and say, we made a lot of mistakes, but Operation Warp Speed helped get these vaccines out and helped end the lockdowns. That's a normal thing to say and would be popular with most Americans. But among a subset, and this is something Ron DeSantis played with, but couldn't quite, as with most things he tried, couldn't quite execute, which is going after Trump on vaccines, on vaccine mandates, on COVID response generally. If RFK gets with the Libertarians, and they're meeting in May, if he gets with the Libertarians, the Cuckoo Bananas caucus in Trump world is going to be very drawn to the kind of ticket that is running as a von Mises caucus Libertarian with RFK Jr. The Michael Flynn wing of the Republican Party will take note.
Well, they're not going to abandon Trump.
I don't know. Obviously, some of those individuals will not, but I do think that there is that. To throw around a term that is thrown around too often, Christian nationalist part of the Republican Party that would be certainly intrigued with an anti-vax ticket. I don't think it will be Aaron Rodgers, but what the heck do I know about what RFK Jr. would do for his running mate?
All right, Chris.
Oh, my
gosh. I think
gosh.
the most interesting story of the week was the TikTok fight on Capitol Hill, which
Yes.
I think shortly after we recorded last week, the House, was it the Energy and Commerce Committee?
I thought it was Judiciary. I forget, but yes, 50-0.
Unanimously voted to advance the bill on the House floor, and then the House approved the bill by enormous margins, 354 to 60-something this week. And the Wall Street Journal did an excellent piece on how TikTok was unprepared for this, which was astonishing. And it highlighted a couple of characters who are not lawmakers who helped advance this. That was really, really interesting, and noted that TikTok's policy folks, who are Americans, had just gone to Singapore to brief TikTok executives, and something like a month ago had told them that they're in the clear. So a huge miss on TikTok's part. And the Journal writes, Anthony Goldblum, a San Francisco-based data scientist and tech executive, started analyzing data TikTok published in its dashboard for ad buyers, showing the number of times users watched videos with certain hashtags. He found far more views for videos with pro-Palestinian hashtags than those with pro-Israel hashtags. While the ratio fluctuated, he found that at times it ran 69-1 in favor of videos with pro-Palestinian hashtags. And it underscores how this effort really gained traction after October 7th because they found that the CCP was amplifying algorithms that favored Hamas.
Well, but it's also true that the people who use TikTok are younger than the population as a whole, and would be more inclined. Demographically speaking, you would already get a slant that way,
Definitely.
even without boosting.
So, but he says TikTok has said its platform doesn't promote one side of an issue over another. Goldblum, who has advocated a ban or sale on TikTok, posted about his finding on X, gaining widespread attention. Then Nikki Haley cited the analysis. Goldblum heard from the office of Mike Gallagher, who heads this committee, and they developed an alliance with the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, who had been vocal with the Biden administration, and she obviously is in the Department of Justice, and they got input from the National Security Council, and what developed was an alliance between a Republican and a Democrat on Capitol Hill and the Biden Justice Department that allowed this bill to move forward, and it's a really, really interesting piece. And all without making headlines while this moved forward, very quietly in the background.
That is true. And TikTok definitely made their plight worse when they did the push notification to all of the TikTok users in the country, telling them to call Washington because they mistakenly flexed their muscles just at a point when lawmakers were concerned about the size of the muscles. I found interesting the coalition. So Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump all came out against the legislation. And it was like, okay, I can see the self-interest of Musk, who does business in China. I can see the self-interest of Trump, who had a meeting with the largest American investor in TikTok, who I assume said soothing things to Donald Trump.
And he's a big Republican donor. His name is Jeff Yass.
Yep.
And I believe upwards of $20 billion of his $27 billion net worth is tied up in TikTok.
And much like Donald Trump re-evaluating Bud Light's perfidies ahead of a big fundraiser with Anheuser-Busch. And I don't think we should underappreciate in this cycle how much Donald Trump's desperate need for money is going to drive a lot of what you see. He's got, I forget, what was it, 60? The number of the amount on his legal bills is so astonishing that it boggles the mind. But
you know what, though? Trump is so transactional.
Yeah.
Just wait for the anti-TikTok guys to get in there. He can be bought for a Happy Meal.
But Trump and Musk both hate Meta, and Meta is the primary competitor to TikTok. But there was a very conscientious civil libertarian argument that was being made about this, which I think Tucker Carlson was alluding to, which basically is this is a speech question. And Thomas Massey and Rand Paul and other libertarians made a case against this, saying this is a backdoor that the government can classify if you get classified as what, and there's a provision in there about misinformation, that if you're engaged in misinformation, and those are subjective things. I read with great interest.
Can I just say something on that?
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly disagree with that. And the audacity of those guys to talk about this as a speech issue when the owners of TikTok ruthlessly police free speech in their own country and then use it as a propaganda tool in our country and exploit our freedoms against us to advance their geopolitical goals truly boggles the mind.
Well,
it boggles the mind.
One of the co-sponsors of the legislation, Jake Auchincloss, my colleague Blake Berman interviewed him. We're recording this on Thursday, interviewed him on Wednesday. And what he said was, this isn't primarily to him about national security. This is about the mental health of our young people, and this is about the messaging that is being pushed forward and all of this stuff.
Well, it's going to do nothing. There can still be TikTok.
Well, I think people who make I think there's a fair point to be made about what's the value of this company. And Jeff Yass may not be a particularly appealing character to some, but people who invested in this and put money into this, if it gets taken away, essentially, if there's a fire sale and the government says you have to sell, what's going to happen? The buyers are going to wait until 30 seconds before the kill switch comes on, and they'll say, I'll give you $50 for it, and you can do that. This is not an easy or straightforward question, but I was impressed. The piece by Lee Bollinger, former president of Colombia, famous from the Grutter v. Bollinger lawsuit. For starting a long-running debate. I remember in my first job at the New York Sun, Bollinger invited Ayatollah Khamenei to speak at Columbia's campus in 2006. Not a conservative.
Well, that was, I say this not to say he's a liberal or conservative or whatever, but that was really what I mark in my mind as the beginning of these big campus wars. Who should be welcome on campus, who should not? And there was a big firestorm around that. And Barry Weiss at the time was a student at Columbia who campaigned against welcoming Khamenei on campus. And here we are.
And so here's what Bollinger writes in the New York Review. The First Amendment spirit, if not its letter, guides the platforms themselves as they strive to provide an open forum, engaging in as little moderation as necessary to keep the sites useful. The fact that powerful private corporations control much of what we see and hear is nothing new. It's just that the new private entities have entered the field. Social media, like more traditional media, is affirmatively protected by the First Amendment. And as a practical matter, the platforms are critical to ensuring that we actually have something approximating what the Supreme Court ruled in New York Times v. Sullivan, described as uninhibited, robust, and wide-open debate. It's messy. It's far from ideal. It will sometimes mean that people are exposed to communication that deeply offends them, and some voices and messages will get more amplification than others. But that is the price of freedom now as much as it was in James Madison's day. That's what he wrote. And I tend to agree. And I don't know enough about national security. I don't know anything about national security. And if there's something in the pipes on TikTok that makes it a national security threat, then our national security community should take action on that. But when I heard Auchincloss say, yeah, but that's the point, is to regulate the speech, I was like, well, I don't know about regulating speech.
In business news.
Oh, baby. This is give him the business. Give him the business.
Cuts Don Lemon off at the knees.
Lemon squeezed yet again.
Don Lemon took to Twitter.
He did.
To announce that Elon Musk had reneged on his agreement to host Don Lemon's show on the platform.
Which in a previous episode we lampooned. Yes, it seemed like they said, well, we have Tucker Carlson here. Now we're going to balance it out and we're going to bring Don Lemon. But no more.
No more. And this underscored to me, Elon has done some great things for free speech on the platform, but ultimately this is his platform and he's going to do whatever the hell he wants.
Yes.
Some people are going to like it. Some people are not going to like it. And to me, like, the joke's on Don Lemon for not understanding that from the outset.
Wait, did Don Lemon go on CNN to share excerpts of is that right? Oh, CNN.
And again,
CNN.
Jokes on Don, like, what
a yeah. Wow. I don't know who is more in the wrong there. CNN for having Don Lemon back on, Don Lemon for going back on CNN. They're paying him $23 million or whatever to go away. I would think they could part as friends. Say thanks for the memories. See you later. But yes, the clip that Lemon put out of a very prickly interview with Elon Musk, I guess the rest of it must have been even pricklier if after the fact Musk said, nah. Speaking of coming back for more.
Oh my gosh. You want to take this one?
Well, it's an engagement announcement in the New York Times that Rupert Murdoch, age 92, is engaged again and is going to marry again to a woman named Elena Zukova.
Who, can I just say,
Yeah.
if I look like this at 67, she's 67 years old. This woman is a babe.
Well,
Total babe
well,
at 67 years old. And she's not only that, a retired molecular biologist whom he started dating in the summer. So things move fast for this man. I guess that's how you get married 5 times.
well, if you're 92, you don't want a long engagement. I think if you're
And-
92, you definitely don't want a protracted
And
engagement.
wowza. Anyhow, presumably we will be discussing their divorce.
The event
at a-
is
in
to
a
be held at
future
Mr.
episode.
Murdoch's California vineyard and estate, Morgana. Morgana is where Mr. Murdoch first hatched his deal with Bob Iger to sell a portion of his media empire. So he has fond memories there. It's a romantic spot. Okay, I'm turning to you for this. The Princess Kate photoshopped story. What's the Eliana take?
Well, she came out and said she photoshopped it, which seems like a stupid thing to do when you're under such scrutiny
Right.
At the outset. And nobody seems to know what the hell is going on with her health, but I don't have any other major thoughts. And I don't have deep interest in the royals. It just seemed like an unforced error.
Well, as a journalism story, I thought it was notable how quickly and thoroughly that image got spiked, right? And, of course, it prompted all these additional conspiracy theories about what's really going on with Princess Kate and all of these things. And so there was obviously a misstep, or she put a wrong hand there. I kind of doubt that she does her own Photoshop work, but maybe she does.
She claimed.
She
said,
claims.
I dabble with Photoshop. I mean, please.
I kind of figure they have people that do that, but whatever, people who do that. I thought this is a story that we're going to see again and again as AI makes alteration of pictures easier and easier and easier, that wire services and news organizations are going to have to develop real good reflexes on how to deal with doctored photos. And so I took this as sort of an encouraging sign.
Chris, that brings us to what? Our
Meaningful
facile
size.
file. Our facile file. Where the Washington Post, we have to turn to the Washington Post for our facile file, where Dana Milbank
This was so
put up a
mean.
piece. My month of living Republicanly. It wasn't even mean. It was just
It was mean.
showed that you don't know any Republicans.
It was the most contemptuous.
So it was totally contemptuous, but stupid, where he said, I went and tried to be a Republican for a
So
month.
he registered as a Republican to vote for
vote
Nikki
for Nikki
Haley.
Haley, and then proceeded to live not at all like a Nikki Haley voter and say, so he writes, to be a Nikki Haley voter, he says, I rooted against Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, cheering instead for the 49ers and their Trumpy defensive end Nick Bosa, as all Nikki Haley voters did. My own visit to the Museum of the Bible was less revelatory. Ben and I shelled out $29.99 apiece for the privilege of touring the main collection, but declined to pay the extra $9.99 for a virtual reality tour of Israel. Blah, blah. We toured a Foss Stone visit of Nazareth, where the Disney-style experience included a costumed woman who sprinkled in a word or two of Hebrew. I mean, if you want to know why conservatives hate the mainstream media and feel sneered at and looked down upon, read this piece.
Yeah, his scorn and contempt for the Museum of the Bible the piece just made me sad, because whoever's reading Dana Milbank, the idea that you would indulge the laziness of indulging your readers. This is no different than when Charlie Kirk or whomever on the right is like, dumb libs. Look at these dumb libs with their Birkenstocks on or whatever, making fun of trans people. This was so gross, and it served no purpose, and it fundamentally bummed me out.
It met my expectations exactly. it really exactly met my expectations.
Fair.
And so did this
fair.
piece in the Washington Post. that was.
This is amazing.
The headline was, "How worried should we be about the drunk elephant tweens?"
Which I did not know.
I was totally familiar with this.
Okay, so just before we talk about what's a drunk
explain
elephant.
it.
Yes.
So Drunk Elephant is a high-end skincare brand.
Okay. Do
where
you use
the products,
Drunk Elephant?
I have, but I don't currently. Where the products are like between $80 and $120 for, a moisturizing cream,
Like for a
etc.
month's supply?
It's maybe like 3 months.
Oh, okay.
And I saw, because there's a pro-Israel influencer who's married to a plastic surgeon, and their daughter is one of these kids. And I think
Okay.
they're quoted in this article. Maybe
Okay.
let me look if they're in here.
I flagged this piece because the headline was so wretched.
No,
how
they're not quoted in here, but they've. So it's about like 10 to 12-year-olds who have multi-step skincare routines using these expensive products, and the post is saying this is a trend, and they write, "Some fear that the youngest consumers have been instilled with anxiety from TikTok and Instagram Reels, and kids are filming themselves using damaging and expensive products meant for wrinkle and dark spot prevention. Oh, this is terrible." And, these doctors see kids 5 days a week with acne made worse by the use of inappropriate products. Anyhow, I read this and I'm like, there are a lot worse things for 12-year-olds to be of parents with means be doing than using expensive skincare products and like washing their face in their bathroom with their friends.
The headline is, "How worried should we be about the drunk elephant tweens?" And my answer is not. As a society, I think we can say we should not spend any effort or energy or time worrying about the drunk elephant tweens. If you have a tween who is a drunk elephant, you should think about lots of things surrounding your child's healthcare, lifestyle, many, many things you should think about. If the headline was, "How concerned should we be about our children?" be as concerned as you want about your own child. But the idea that you would do a trend story with the clickbait, "How worried should we be?" Stop worrying people. We have plenty of worries. Stop making up new worries for people. Oh, which I must say, the New York Times gets in the facile derby with this piece. "I said the end of famines might be ending." Wait for it. I was wrong. I said the era of famines might be ending. I was wrong. This piece by Alex DeWall, who is executive director of the World Peace Foundation at Tufts University, writes a mea culpa in the New York Times saying, "I thought that that the era of famines had ended. I thought that it was over, and yet we continue to have famines." Well, guess what? Human beings, we are wonderful. We are great, but we are the worst. And you know where famines occur? When governments fail, people fail, right? The problem of food insecurity, of real food insecurity, is mostly a problem of systems, right? It's mostly a problem of corruption, of genocidal intent, of these things, not anything else. And I found sort of sweet, I guess this isn't really facile so much as it is truly naive, that a person would say, "Well, I'm glad we finally abolished famines because now we don't have to do that anymore." Be very grateful that you live in the United States of America. Be very grateful that you live in a country with the rule of law. Be very grateful that you live in a country that protects the rights of individuals. These things are very important because if you don't have them, lots of bad things happen to people, including famine. Joseph Stalin could not be reached for comment.
Chris, I loved this. The Wall Street Journal had
This
is
for
our
style
style section. The hottest new home amenity, quote, "It's brutal." And it is about how a cold plunge tub is the hottest new home amenity. Most mornings after Stephen Garten wakes up at his home in Austin, Texas, he goes into his backyard and starts pacing, preparing himself for what's next. "It's brutal," says Garten, 37, the founder and CEO of social impact company Charity Charge. "It's a real challenge every day." He's talking about lowering himself into a 60 sink 36-inch long and 24-inch wide stainless steel tub clad in customized zebra wood and submerging himself up to his neck in water that he sets at 39 degrees Fahrenheit with water circulating at 1,400 gallons a minute. It's like being in a river, he says of the flow rate produced by this particular vessel, a blue cube cold plunge. And then another guy says, Johnson, 50, who runs a management consulting firm, uses the hot pool.
Just be clear. His name is Onyx W.D. Johnson. Just before you gloss over the fact that his name is Onyx W.D. Johnson.
Cousin Johnson.
Yes, exactly.
He runs a management consulting firm, uses the hot pool, steam room, and sauna, and then cold plunges for 45 seconds to a minute. He says the routine speeds up his training and recovery time, helps him think clearer, and improves his alertness and mood. I mean, I'm sure that taking a plunge into freezing cold water would make you more alert. I just wanted to say that if I had this kind of disposable income, this is maybe the last freaking thing I would spend my money on.
If I had it and it would haunt you, right, as you walked by it each day, right, as it stood there, this freezing cold bucket of water on your deck, and it would haunt you. If people are using their exercise machines as clothing racks, I don't know. Maybe I know what they can do. They can come with a hot tub adapter so that after you quit wanting to do cold plunge, you can convert it and you can have a pleasant warm sit.
Except that they're the size of little bathtubs. Like, I want to have a nice hot tub that I can.
Would you have a hot tub?
Totally.
I would so love to have a hot tub. I would so love.
But you want it to be spacious and sit there with several people.
There's only one other person really in the world that I want to. I mean, I guess
you wouldn't
the boys.
Invite us over and hang out in the hot tub and have some drinks.
Let's not get crazy. Okay, I'll go a four-seater tops. Six.
Yeah, we want to do
six.
record an episode.
I would do Wretches tubbed. Yeah, that's fine, but not a cold plunge. I don't like cold water.
When I was in 7th grade, they made us do a week-long trip to this wilderness camp.
How'd that go?
It was freaking horrible. In the middle of the winter. It was like the week after we got back from winter break in Minnesota. You go up north, and at the end of it, they cut a hole in the ice, and you had to jump in the hole into the freezing cold lake. It was exactly this. It was horrible.
So I admit that I originally, when I saw this piece in the New York Times Style magazine, I thought that it would be a facile file when I first saw the headline. A night with New York's lesbian and bisexual backgammon league. And I thought, you know what? This is going to be a joke bag. And I found it. I was charmed. This by Julia Halprin. Charmed by this piece about these folks. The Lesbian and Bisexual Backgammon League, known as the LBBL for short, formed in 2017 after Ellen Stachowski, 35, the founder of the gallery guide app Seesaw, struck up a conversation with Hester Hoddle, 36, an interior designer at the West Village lesbian bar Cubbyhole. Stachowski had been introduced to backgammon the previous summer and had the zeal of a convert. Growing up, Hoddle played with her family on ski trips. It was a fun, jokey idea to try to bring people together. And so it's an interesting, well-written, humane piece about all of this. And you know what my favorite thing about it is? You know who won? Straight white dude. At the end. And so they're sort of in on the joke a little bit, and it's told with a little lightness, and it's told with a little self-reference. And I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Chris, that brings us to our obsessions of the week, where we break down the stories we can't get out of our heads. I would say I couldn't get this out of my head, except that my head exploded when I read
it immediately
the Wall
escaped.
Street Journal profile of National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. And this is a long piece with 3 bylines in which they write the following. Sullivan, who was 44 when Biden appointed him National Security Advisor, was the youngest person to hold the post in over a half-century. He's now on track to becoming among the longest-serving national security advisors, leading supporters to compare his influence on U.S. foreign policy with that of the late Henry Kissinger. Whoa.
Whoa.
Whoa. So he's really
Big if true.
He's really influential. Okay.
Big if true.
They then describe his influence as follows. Sullivan's role, as other officials and experts said, isn't to advocate a policy, but present an analysis of the options to Biden, who listens to advice and makes the ultimate decision. One former official likened it to a debate over the color of the sky. If 5 people said it's blue and Sullivan said it's red, what ultimately matters is what the president believes. If POTUS says it's blue, the former official said. So they basically said his job is to do whatever the hell the president says, no matter what, even if the president's totally wrong, and he has no responsibility for the ultimate decisions that the president makes. At the same time, he's so insanely influential, his influence can only be compared to that of Henry Kissinger, who was simultaneously the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of State, and he can bear no responsibility for the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which he opposed, for saying that Gaza, the West Bank and Israel was all quiet a week before the everything erupted in flames in the region, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So I'm not quite sure how they keep together these two opposing ideas, but when I read this, I thought, I want this job where you have so much influence but no responsibility. I want that job.
Yeah. My obsession is I got many people sent me this piece, and it was much discussed,
including me.
Did you send you? Oh, this was your. Oh, okay, good. Then you added to my obsession. You fueled my obsession. Excuse me. This is a piece from the Financial Times. Apologies to British economic readers. American politics is undergoing a racial realignment, and it is by John Byrne Murdoch. And in this piece, which has a lot of vivid, stark-looking hockey stick graphs, he talks about something that we've talked about here and that is a common point of discussion in American politics, which is Joe Biden and Democrats are struggling to maintain the kinds of huge numbers that they had in the past with non-white voters, which is absolutely true, which is 100% true. I would point you to the work of Nate Moore that he did with our colleagues Ruth Teixeira and Carlin Bowman on what's going on with younger black voters, which are much less aligned with the Democratic Party than voters over, I guess, 50s about the break line.
It says in the piece, it notes that black voters who were alive during the civil rights era are much more likely to be Democratic voters.
So there's a cliff, and it's not a sharp cliff. There's a you can see the line break for black voters under 50, especially men. One other thing that I would say here, if Donald Trump does much better with black voters in 2024 than he did in 2020, he will do about as well as George W. Bush did with black voters. It used to be very common for Republicans to get 10, 12, 13% of the black vote, particularly with black men. That was not uncommon. And then Obama came, and then Trump came, and the numbers went very, very low. So some of what we're seeing is a natural restoration of this. But certainly what we're seeing with Hispanic and Asian voters is real. And this is, so here's my frustration. My frustration with this piece, he's stealing a bunch of bases. He's lumping together black voters and other non-white voters into one group as if that meant something. The experience of African Americans, the descendants of slaves in the United States, is a totally different experience than that of Asian and South Asian immigrants to the United States in the past 40 years. It's different from Hispanic Americans, some of whom have been here for 5 or 6 generations, some of whom are part of the Latin diaspora that came from the 80s into the teens of this century. These are very different. And even within those groups, right, if you look at voter behavior among Hispanic voters in Florida to Texas to Arizona to California to Nevada, guess what? The voters in those states reflect those states. That's what you see. Hispanic voters are somewhat more Democratic than the population as a whole, but saying that Hispanic voters are a thing is misleading. They're just not. And to get on my soapbox one more time, 100 years ago, if you were Italian American or you were Polish American or Irish American, my grandfather McCarthy was at his molecular core a Democrat, because for new immigrant populations, partisan identification is part of acculturation. But when the work of acculturation is achieved, then partisanship loses its salience, or some of its salience. And the idea that all non-white voters have something in common other than the color of their skin or the fact that their skin is not as pale as mine is missing it, right? And Democrats miss this point. Speaking of Rui Teixeira, something that Rui has written about how overinterpreted his book with John Judas, The Emerging Democratic Majority, was. You can't pretend that race is this important and ethnicity is this important, and especially as Hispanic and Asian, the immigrants and if you're in the third generation, that you're going to have low salience. And I basically agree with what this guy is saying in terms of, yes, it's true, but I think it's a very ham-fisted way to approach it. And the demographic flattening of American politics into white and non-white is unhelpful. Harumph. There, I harumphed it.
Chris, that brings us to my favorite time of the week, which is reader mail. And this is a freaking good letter.
You got a good one?
From Kevin Spencer in Oklahoma City.
Okay, see,
He
what
writes,
up?
Dear Wretches, I love the show, particularly your sidetracks into food and style. I was heartened to hear Eliana's approval of men's premium sneakers for
the
casual
phrase
wear,
is a giveaway,
since
Kevin.
they have become my preference when wearing clothing like jeans and a sweater. It's funny that as I've gotten older, 47 years currently, I've abandoned choices like topsiders and loafers for very casual wear in exchange for premium sneakers from brands like Crown, Northampton, Echo, and Koyo. And I'm a fan of Koyo, this brand.
Don't know what it is, but I believe you.
I'm even considering a pair of dress sneakers for my beloved Alan Edmonds to pair with business casual outfits. Okay, I'm not a fan of the dress sneakers, but I like Koyo. I can already hear the harumph from Mr. Style.
Harumph.
I am curious what Chris's choice of grown-up shoe is for this type of casual outfit, particularly with jeans. Thank you for the wonderful show.
You want to...
Wait, there's a PS.
Okay.
Please, even if just in an email reply, provide the name of the polo shirt brand that Chris mentioned in an episode last year. I had the website saved but lost it in an unfortunate tech incident. He searched and searched and searched. And he loves the commentary podcast and can't afford to re-listen to the Wretches episodes in search of this shirt.
I don't know what shirt it would have been. Holderness and Bourne makes a fine golf shirt in a variety of weaves and materials, a polo shirt. Golf shirt is going to have a slightly longer placket, but Holderness and Bourne is very good. I like their stuff. Peter Millar is overpriced. I find Peter Millar to be not a super value, but has nice stuff. But Holderness and Bourne, I think, is pretty good. Now, you want to wear tennis shoes with jeans? Wear tennis shoes. That's fine. That's okay. I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying that it's that wearing, you have to wear. I don't think there is. I'm right now wearing penny loafers with my loudest sport coat and a pair of gray flannel pants. And I was really on the fence today about socks. Today felt like it was the day.
I wore no socks today.
Today was the day. I thought today may be the day that I would start to cross over into the no sock part of the year. But I did indeed wear socks today. And I'm wearing penny loafers. I wouldn't wear dress sneakers with this, right? My complaint about the Alan Edmonds dress sneaker, if you're wearing casual clothes What are you wearing jeans and a sweater to go do? You're going to the grocery store. You're popping into the hardware store. You're going over to a friend's house to watch the game. Wear sneakers if you want to wear sneakers. That's fine. That's okay. You don't have to wear dress shoes to do that. And sometimes I even wear sneakers for a day that I'm going to be doing a bunch of different stuff. And I don't wear jeans because I have no posterior, and it looks sad if I do. But wear sneakers. That's fine. Dress sneakers are the problem. Dress sneakers are the problem. They're not for work. You don't wear them to work. When you're going to work, when you're going to church, mosque, synagogue, the Rotary Club, whatever, wherever you worship, when you're doing those things and going into community with other people, show respect by dressing appropriately for the thing. It's not about how good you look. It's about saying we're here to do something worthwhile and important. And you can get shoes that are not sneakers that are very comfortable. You can get very comfortable shoes that are not sneakers, but don't wear business sneakers. There are no business sneakers. Please, I implore you.
Our next note is from Daniel in Oakland, California. And Daniel writes, "Hello, wretches.
Hello.
Long time, first time. I'm certain the linked article is a great example of something I can't quite put my finger on. And I was hoping some expert media critics might have some insights. The headline reads, LA County testing AI to get homeless people sheltered, with a subhead of the program has served more than 700 clients since 2021, and 86% have retained their housing and paying all their bills. This sounds promising since, as I understand it, keeping the homeless sheltered through interventions presents unique challenges. If there is a program that can help direct limited resources to the candidates that are best positioned to take advantage of the help, well, great. Turns out the AI actually predicts who is at risk for homelessness but are not currently homeless, which is very different from getting homeless people sheltered. The subhead really should read, AI directs funds meant for the homeless to people who have homes. Most don't become homeless. Also, not for nothing, but one really shouldn't need AI to predict who is at risk for homelessness. I don't need UCLA computer scientists to tell me that people who are on food assistance and have mounting hospital bills are at risk. Something about the combination of 1, dishonest headlines, 2, AI content, and 3, the homeless crisis combined to make this a particularly fine example of wretchedness for me. Love the pod." I think Daniel is an expert media critic himself.
So this is a piece. I actually read this piece, Daniel, with interest. This is from an outfit called Cal Matters. So Cal Matters describes itself as nonpartisan, which I'm willing to believe that it's nonpartisan, but it's advocacy, right? Cal Matters is kind of a think tanky thing. It's certainly a nonprofit, and it's kind of a think tanky thing that is encouraging Californians to look at interesting solutions. I think I agree with many of your points, Daniel. And this was the link that Daniel sent it to it was reprinted in the East Bay Times, which further obscures its origin, right? If you don't know what Cal Matters is and go looking for what Cal Matters is, if this is passed off just as, this is a staff report, it would certainly fall short of that. But I will say this. I'm very interested to see how AI is. I finally got my brain around this part of AI. It's just going to make everything a lot cheaper. It's going to bring down the price of everything because it just will, right? It'll just be so much easier to do so many other things. Nate, what was the name of the dude who won Samoa in the Democratic caucuses? Jason Palmer. How did Jason Palmer win the delegates of American Samoa against Joe Biden? In part through the use of AI to do the work of a campaign that he didn't have the resources to do. He did that. So I'm sure there are promising ways to use AI negatively or positively and negatively, right? There are ways that this will be used to harm people, ways that it will be used to help people. But basically what it's going to do is make everything cheaper. And one of the things that it might make cheaper is that in the warren of the public welfare state, it might make it easier to identify people. I don't know. But I certainly take your other points. And I think it's cool that we happened, Daniel, that we happened upon the same article. Mine was sent to me by my eldest man-child. And that we happened upon the same thing and had interesting thoughts about it. Isn't that a fine, wretched moment?
Chris, that brings us to your favorite time of the week, our favorite items. When I am forced to say something nice, but please lead us by example.
So I read a lot of political profile pieces and a lot of political content every week. And the Wall Street Journal wrote a profile of Laura Trump, who is the daughter-in-law. I say she's the red state Ivanka Kushner, Trump Kushner, right? Like she's the 2.0. She's the wife of Eric Trump, and she has political aspirations of her own. She was exploring a run for Senate in North Carolina, and she's like the red state version of Ivanka and Jared. So I think we see and we know that the other Trump son is a niche. He's a niche property. I think they would say in the real estate game. So I read this thing because she's shaking up the RNC, and she and Chris LaCivita are going and wrecking shop over there and doing all this. So it was interesting. But this is my favorite for this paragraph, this one paragraph. And the piece is by, to give credit where credit is due, Alex Leary and John McCormick, writing for the Wall Street Journal. And it's just one of the best paragraphs in a profile I've read in a long time. Laura Trump is many things. Wife of Eric Trump, a mother of two, a fitness fiend, a Tom Petty cover vocalist, a children's book author, and former Inside Edition producer. Mwah! You did it. In one paragraph, you were like, okay, I have an insight on who this person is now in that one paragraph. So good.
My favorite item was Oscar adjacent, and it was also in the Journal. And it was, what's in a $178,000 Oscars gift bag?
Meat? Bag of meat?
No meat.
No meat.
I think there's a lot of food in there.
Yeah, probably.
For these people.
Bummer.
And it notes that they're mostly gift certificates, but it said this year's bag is worth about $178,410. That valuation includes a 3-night stay at Chalet Zermatt Peak in Switzerland, $50,000.
Whoa.
3-night stay at a private St. Bart Paradise Villa in St. Bart's, $25,000.
Dig.
And a 7-day holistic wellness retreat at the Golden Door Resort,
Pass.
$24,000.
They probably make you take a cold plunge.
While the overall figure may be eye-watering, the actual value of the physical gifts sent directly to the stars is closer to $10,000 this year, according to the company. That's because most of the big expensive items are actually just offers. Many brands issue invitations for services, objects, and experiences, which, unlike true gift certificates, aren't considered taxable, and it's up to the stars to redeem them. No one has ever come close to redeeming all of the vouchers. Whatever offers are redeemed would be considered taxable gifts. There's the rub.
There's the rub.
Yes. In 2006, the Academy decided to end its own practice of handing out gift bags, citing the upfront tax burden they placed on stars.
Huh.
Well, I would not mind.
Would you go to the Golden Door Resort for a holistic wellness retreat?
If it was a gift certificate, I would happily pay the taxes on some of these things to get the underlying gift for free.
I like it.
Well, that is all the time we have for the news about the news. If you have a story you want us to talk about, email us at wretches@nebulouspodcast.com and sign up for our newsletter at nebulouspodcasts.com. This has been Ink-Stained Wretches from Nebulous Media, produced by Colin Chicola.
What?
Find us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Wretches.